What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers, and break down what the technicals are saying about NIO as time progresses and what you should be watching for going forward. But before I break anything down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and upon $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. This offer ends in just 8 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the markets. Looking at NIO, this thing was down about 1% for the day, continuing to look a little bit weak. But the question about tomorrow is how will NIO move? And we have some things to be discussing. For tomorrow, we have Jerome Powell giving a speech at 9:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Whatever this guy ends up saying could cause the market to move, so you just want to be very careful to see if he says anything about the economy, the Fed's monetary policy, or anything that's quite significant. So we're going to be waiting very, very patiently to see what he says. He's going to be speaking before the market opens, and after that, we have some bill auctions and the note auctions data coming out later on that could cause a little bit more volatility. But that's pretty much it for tomorrow. It's just Powell's speech, just a couple of minor pieces of data, and the market's going to continue to do its thing. Now, when it comes to some earnings coming out, we have AMC and Disney coming out for tomorrow. So we're going to be watching these very carefully. And right now we have Rivian and just a couple of others. So we're going to be waiting very patiently to see which earnings are also coming out. I think NIO should be reporting earnings very soon. The official date is not confirmed just yet. It could be either the 9th or the 13th. I was looking, it's like coming very, very soon over the next couple of days. So we're going to be waiting to see what happens with NIO's earnings. And I think this is going to have a big effect on the share price. Now, on top of all of this, there's some news right here that the NIO ET7 is gearing up for the 6th the CIIE event, and this is going to be very important for them because the ET7 is a big part of NIO's new innovations, and as time goes on, I can't wait to see what this holds for NIO. There's also this news that came out yesterday that NIO said that it may have proposed another Mercedes partnership. This is big news for them because with Mercedes, they could exchange lots of different techniques and pieces of technology, and this will help NIO for the long run. So I think that NIO will benefit greatly if they do partner with Mercedes, and we'll see how it goes from there. On top of this, Deutsche Bank has a buy rating alongside Mizuho and many of these other analyst ratings. The price-price ratio is kind of flat for NIO. It's basically performing very similar to that of the markets. I'm going to be watching to see what else happens with all this data. Now, on top of this, we tend to be green about 56% of the time on Wednesdays. So we'll see how this affects NIO and expect some volatility during the second hour of the day and also the second to last hour of the trading day. We tend to see a bit more volatility. With volume at 25 million, there's not a whole lot going on with NIO. And from a technical standpoint, it is looking a little weak after getting that 4-hour 200 EMA rejection. So we're going to be watching if the 50 EMA holds. We managed to close above this. NIO has support at 7.84. If we lose this, I anticipate NIO is going to start sinking all the way down towards the 7.5 area, and there could be a bit more downside because we're looking more bearish on the 4-hour time frame. On the daily time frame, NIO is also losing strength; its momentum is slowing down, and we have these gaps to fill. So there is going to be a risk of NIO potentially coming down to fill this gap and make its way down towards 7.4 to 7.5. My gut's telling me it's going to rebound a bit, retest $8, then reject, and maybe continue to sink a bit lower, at least for the time being. But if it does fill this gap early on, this could be good because earnings could help this thing bounce. The SPY is continuing to climb. On the 4-hour time frame, it looks like it wants to test 438. We're getting very close to that target, so we'll see how Jerome Powell affects it. There's a bearish divergence developing, so there's going to likely be some downside coming soon. We'll see if Powell causes this thing to rug pull from here or not. If Powell causes the rug pull, expect us to test 435 and then 433. But what I'm thinking is we might go a little higher during the pre-market to get very close to 438, which is where we have this very tight resistance and lots of rejections historically. And we might pop a bit and then start dropping from there. So we'll be watching that very, very carefully. For Tesla, we have a head and shoulders pattern developing on the 4-hour time frame. But the thing about Tesla is this thing right here is kind of weakening a bit, and we have an unfilled gap all the way down here. So I think Tesla is due to fill this gap in the future. But first, we're going to be watching to see what Jerome Powell says. Does the guy cause the market to pump more? If so, we could see Tesla retest 225. If that breaks, one should get very close to 228 and then 230 before this thing gets the rejection. So it could pop a little bit before it comes back down. I still anticipate there could be some downside coming. but we'll just have to wait and see what Jerome Powell says. If Tesla loses this 212 support, I anticipate it's going to fill the gap down to 205, then bounce. We also have a possible inverse head and shoulders like structure that is developing. So we have like this left shoulder here, right? We could be forming a right shoulder. If it drops and then bounces, we'll be watching this very carefully and we'll see what happens with Powell. The market is due for a pullback soon, but we're not quite there yet. Aapl is approaching this key resistance. We're at key resistance at 182.5. If we break this, watch 185, then a rejection, or it could just reject from here. So we'll just have to wait and see what Powell causes. For the QQQ, we're very close to some key resistance at 173.74. We're just short of that, so we'll be watching to see if we get a rejection near 374. Excuse me. We have a bearish divergence developing on the chart. We're losing some momentum, but we'll see if this thing can push a little higher, get very close to about 374. If the bearish divergence remains, we might reject and start sinking. So watch for a little bit more upside for a potential rejection. Nvidia has some tight resistance at 460 to 462 because historically we've seen this thing reject off these levels. So we're going to be very careful at these higher levels, especially 462. We'll see if this could break. If it manages to break above the 462s, then 465 could be where this thing rejects. We're losing some momentum, so there's going to be a risk of some downside off this bearish divergence, but we'll have to see if Powell causes the downside or not. So I am leaning in the direction this is going to reject soon. Might pop a bit more and then reject, or it could just reject from here. But be very careful looking at the MACD and also based off what Powell says. So just be very careful. The VIX came down even more, but the VIX is trying to establish a somewhat bullish divergence. You can see it right here on the chart. So the VIX might try to actually bounce and make its way back up into the 15. Excuse me, sorry guys, into the 15s. So we'll see if this thing drops a bit more than bounces, or if it just bounces from here. That could once again be a bearish signal for the markets, but the market's not ready yet. For NIO, it looks like it's a little weak right now on the 4-hour time frame. It's just barely testing the 50 EMA. If we end up breaking or closing below 7.8, I anticipate the gap to get filled between 7.4 and 7.5. I think that there could be more downside coming. NIO is looking a little weak as well. I mean, it's just continuing to fall. On the daily chart, it looks like it's going to try to push a little higher first and then drop. So we might see NIO try to retest $8 at the 20 EMA on the daily, but it might reject off that and then continue lower. So watch for this gap down here. If NIO does reject, we could see this gap get filled around 7.5. But then we'll see how it goes from there, because it could always fill the gap and then bounce. So it's not necessarily the end of the world. If NIO bounces off 7.5 or so, if it makes a higher low relative to 7.18, it could still be on an uptrend. And this could be a change in market structure where it starts to make higher highs, a higher low, and then higher highs again. So NIO could start uptrending. We're going to be watching this test. So watch for a little pop and then drop tomorrow. We might fill this gap soon. If that's the case, look for a bounce later on and see if NIO establishes a higher low. All right, guys, so that's what I have for this one. Look for an $8 test tomorrow and a rejection on NIO. There could be some downside, and we will see what Jerome Powell causes, as it's going to be a very important day. So just be patient. We'll see how it goes. And with that said, have a great day. Thank you for listening, and peace out.